entrare. Allora, vi ricordo che questo primo incontro è registrato, quindi se insomma vi va bene dovete accettare sullo schermetto che vi è apparso davanti. Ok, buonasera a tutti, grazie per essere tutti qui. Questo è il primo incontro del ciclo di webinar organizzato in collaborazione tra Viaggio in Corea e Asiatica, Rivista di Studi Orientalistici. In particolar modo questo webinar si chiama Corea e Coreanità nell'Arte Contemporanea e in questi 3 incontri che abbiamo organizzato, insomma, daremo spazio a diversi, insomma, modi interpretativi in cui... Chiedo scusa, vi ricordo di tenere il microfono chiuso e anche la webcam. Comunque, insomma, in questi 3 incontri tratteremo diversi aspetti dell'arte contemporanea e in particolar modo Asiatica, Rivista di Studi Orientalistici, è stata fondata da me, Raffaele Caruso e Vittoria Iello. La nostra rivista è divisa in 3 sezioni, Cina, Giappone e Corea, e ci occupiamo prevalentemente della stesura di articoli specialistici su svariate tematiche. Da dicembre scorso abbiamo anche aperto una sezione dedicata agli eventi e insomma questo è il primo evento di quest'anno, quindi sono felice di vedervi tutti qua. E passerei anche la parola adesso a Viaggio in Corea per poi dare la parola alla nostra referente Grazia Milano, che si occuperà di presentare l'ospite di questa sera. Prego.
Allora, vado io, poi passo la parola a
Vai,
Grazia.
vai.
Molto velocemente, io sono qui a rappresentare Viaggio in Corea. Noi siamo un blog, non siamo un'agenzia di viaggio, ma siamo un blog che vuole, il titolo del blog è fatto appunto perché vorremmo portarvi con i nostri articoli a conoscere un po' vari aspetti della Corea, sia luoghi da visitare che aspetti culturali. Un blog che è nato da poco tempo, in realtà dalla collaborazione di alcuni appassionati, ma che in realtà è stato creato alcuni anni fa da Vincenzo Acampo, che è anche qui che ci ascolta in silenzio, e che tra l'altro è anche il fondatore di Kince Basilico, che forse qualcun altro di voi conosce. E adesso passo la parola a Grazia Milano e ringrazio tutti voi per essere qui e Asiatica per aver voluto organizzare questo ciclo di webinar.
Grazie.
Un buon proseguo.
Grazie ragazzi, io da questo momento parlerò in inglese, dal momento che, che sì, c'era qualche interferenza. Dicevo, parlerò in inglese dal momento che appunto l'ospite di questa sera parla in inglese, quindi abbiamo necessità di cambiare lingua. And so, hello everyone, first of all, again, hello Minji, especially. And so for today's webinar, we're going to use English, as I said, as our guest, Minji Chun doesn't speak Italian, obviously, so we're going to use English. And so I think, first of all, I'd like to introduce Minji Chun, and then I'll give to her the floor. Minji Chun is a PhD candidate in History of Art at the University of Oxford, specializing in Korean contemporary art. She has been working as an art critic, curator, and translator based in Seoul and Oxford, and a research and curatorial projects center on Asian contemporary art and cultural mobility. They have been supported by the ministries of France, Japan, and Korea, Asia Europe Foundation, Korea Foundation, Arts Council in Korea, and Seoul Foundation for Arts and Culture, among others. Her resume is outstanding. It's just pages and pages of grants and awards, and so I'm very, very honored. We are very honored she could join us today and give this lecture. And again, yeah, especially because she's going to talk about Korean artists in the Venice Biennale 2022. So it might be of interest of all those people who want to actually go in Venice and see in person what Minji is going to talk about today. Before giving the floor to Minji, I just want to remind the audience, first of all, to please turn off your mic during the talk, and then that you're invited to ask questions at the end of the talk. We maybe will have 15 minutes, 20 minutes of Q&A session. Also, feel free to write, to type your questions in the chat box if you prefer, and then I'll be reading them out loud at the end during the Q&A session. And also, if you'd like, you can ask your questions in Italian, and then I'll translate them for you if you'd like. And so thank you. And now, Minji, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Grazia, for the introduction. I will quickly share my screen before starting. Is it working for everyone?
Yeah, it's working.
Yes.
Cool, thank you. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Minji Chun, and I'm currently reading my DPhil degree in History of Arts at the University of Oxford, and I'm also specializing in Korean contemporary arts. Thanks to the invitation today of Viaggio in Corea and Asiatika, I'm going to convey this seminar titled Collective Memory and Solidarity, Korean Artists in the Venice Biennale 2022. Yes, so as you might have been informed, it will be about the Korean contemporary arts and artists currently exhibited in this year's Venice Biennale in a non-academic way for everyone, I hope so. And I will especially focus on the exhibition titled To Where the Flowers Are Blooming, which is the Gwangju Biennale May 18 Democratization Movement Special Exhibition, along with a brief introduction to the Korean Pavilion by artist Yoon Kim, and one of the official collateral events by Jeon Kwang-young, and also two artists who were selected for the main exhibition of this year's Venice Biennale, Mire Lee and Kim Hyung-chong. So let's start with the very first one, To Where the Flowers Are Blooming. Is there anyone who already visited this exhibition by any chance? Yes, yes, very inspiring and encouraging. Yeah, so as you all may know, it's an international exhibition at Spazio Berlandis that looks at how human beings can move past their recollected sufferings and historical catastrophe in order to generate a better future altogether. A phrase, quote, "Where the flowers bloom," quote, from the final chapter of the Korean novelist Han Gang's novel, Human Acts. In Korean, it was 소년이 온다, and which addresses the lingering trauma of May 1980 in Gwangju. It served as the inspiration for the exhibition's title here. And to understand this, I believe it's necessary to mention and revisit the historical context and legacy of the May 18 democratization movement in Gwangju, South Korea. So triggered by the political suppression of the late president Jeon Do-han and his military dictatorship, the Gwangju Uprising, also known as the May 18 democratization movement, started on the eponymous date in 1980. Despite the cold-blooded beatings and shootings of the military force and even from the government, Gwangju citizens at the risk of death organized themselves using solidarity as a foothold for the democracy. Since then, more than 40 years have passed, but the lasting trauma still exists on the Korean society. As a catalyst favoring democracy, these historical events fortified the foundation of Minjung arts, a confrontational social critical art movement from the Republic of Korea in the 1980s that remains relevant in Korean society today. As the art of dissent at that time, the Gwangju citizens leading and shouting, "Viva Gwangju," as you can see in the picture here, Gwangju 만세, or "Let's fight to the end," 끝까지 싸우자 in Korean, were fully visualized in earnest, as you can see in one of the woodcut prints by the artist Hong Sang-dam in 1984. He is famous with his various attempts to capture the lived reality of the moment to support civilian efforts during the Gwangju uprising. Also, this sort of scene expanded beyond the canvas into illustrations or multiple publications, independent publications, street arts, posters, and hanging pictures, etc. So the lamentation is imprinted in both contemporary Korean society and also reflected in the visual art scene as a recurring theme. However, contemporary Korean artists, they no longer settle themselves in grief, mourning, or resentment, nor suggest specific solutions to heal the soul. Instead of it, they seek purely to remember and record in different ways. So I think it is noteworthy that their ways to cherish the history are now crossing borders and even continents from Asia to America. That is, by situating this region-specific situation in a global context, the generation after the one that experienced the May 18 democratization movement, they all produces another kind of geography of trauma. Thus, I'm going to emphasize these two phrases from the exhibition forward, the exhibition description. So the first one was, quote, "surveys the city's history, memories, drama, and spiritual heritage." And the second one was, quote, "reflects on the democratization movement in Gwangju and modern day activism," quote. So from the first one, we could think about one of the main keywords of today's talk, collective memory. And from the second one, another keyword, solidarity, comes to our mind. Now, to navigate this new world of commemoration, I'm going to introduce some examples of exhibited artworks in this exhibition. And the whole range of participating artists here was from Coreanità, Chunions, 배영환, 홍성담, 노순택, 안창훈, 최선, 진 마일슨, 김창훈, 박화연, to 서다솜. So they're all from different regions, continents, and also even from different generations. And because of the time constraint today, I'm afraid I can't introduce every single great artwork of this exhibition here, but I chose 4 examples to explain how the exhibition is connected with collective memory and solidarity. So, yes, so let's move on to our first example here. As you can see on the screen, this photography is one of the series called Forgetting Machines by Korean artist No Sun-taek, who was born in 1971. This series first began in 2007, and it even continued until 2018. Forgetting Machines series, this presents re-photographed funerary portraits discovered on the tomb of those who passed away during the May 18 movement in Gwangju's old cemetery. And this was first displayed at round table at the 9th Gwangju Biennale almost 10 years ago. So these portraits, which are frequently kept outside in glass boxes, have over time been harmed by the weather outside. The graves are those of people who were killed by soldiers while the uprising was in progress, and whose remains were momentarily buried. The massacre of civilians was not acknowledged until the military dictatorship ended in 1987, and it took another 10 years for May 18 to be declared a National Memorial Day. A cemetery for the victims of the uprising was then finally constructed in 1997. Some families, however, refused permission to transfer the remains of their loved ones to the new cemetery until the official apology from the government for the massacre was given to them. So now we can observe how the artist, Roh Sun-taek, he intentionally chose portraits that have faded over the past 15 years and contextualize them using various images that depicts memories. A statement by the artist that is a part of the installation describes these pictures, and the collection of images in forgetting machines ask what is forgotten and remembered during the memorialization and commemorative processes. Furthermore, a perspective on how personhood enters collective beliefs is formed by weaving personal narratives with historical events. The next one, the second one, is a large-scale painting titled Leviathan by Jin Meyerson, who is a Korean-American artist born in 1972, based in New York City. And the second one, sequence 4.0, it's actually an artwork in AR, standing for augmented reality, which is very interactive through Instagram's photo filters. So these are the detail shots. And the final one, this one was taken by my Instagram when I visited the exhibition space. So even though the Leviathan is a painting, I think it functions as a near-religious post-propaganda monument to worldwide protests that incorporates elements from festivals, concerts, and political rallies, as you can see in this detail shot here. So along with a photo taken from the actual Democracy Square grounds in Gwangju, South Korea, this AR artwork overlay reveals portions of the painting's original source material that have never before been seen in public before. And these two parts, which span more than a decade, invite the audience to interact with ideas of living memorials, memory, public protests, locations of place and time, and how we navigate our sense of history in an era of pervasive social media usage through the use of a QR code on the ground of the exhibition space. So these elements work together, very much interconnected. And the third one is by Seo Da-som, who was born in 1984. The sentence on the left photograph here, 이것이 내가 항쟁을 지지하는 방법이다, is a Korean translation of this artwork's title. This is how I participate in the uprising. Seo Da-som is a Korean artist who does not distinguish between living and creating art. She continues to keep an eye on the situation around her and follows her everyday life. So through the mediation of cooking, which was an interesting part for me, She experiments with learning from each other in her process-oriented project titled Practice Makes Practice. Instead of communicating to exchange knowledge in predetermined languages, the artist thinks that nonverbal and intuitive actions like cooking and sharing food with people could inspire audience to come up with new thoughts and conversations that are essential to life. So in this work, this is how I participate in the uprising as well. The artist shares the process of recalling and assimilating the lifestyle of 1980s citizens and their independent movement through her artwork. As you can see from the left part here, the written record of Gwangju residents from 1980 served as the basis for this work. Despite the dangerous circumstances, they have kept up their uprising for the democracy. On the right side, you can read the part of her workshop in Venice, cooking food and sharing them with the audience. The artist directs cooking for protesters in the exhibition hall, just like people did in 1980, as a symbolization of history, leading to present and practical research. So it helps to build plans for uprising in various ways and to protest altogether. So from this point, the artists prepared customized meal kits that suit actual situations, like necessary food as critical nutrient for protesters. When you read the description of right side photo here, quote, "This is very much alike the bond and caring heart that people in Gwangju in May show to do their best to protect other people and themselves when everyone's life was being threatened." The menu below has also their own meaning. The rice bowl, jumokbap in Korean, was one of the representative food that citizens gave to protesters in Gwangju. It can go beyond the symbol of communality and emotional solidarity between citizens, and even works as a medium that leads to a utopian country. And the final one from this exhibition is Chunions, the 49th Hexagram, which is a 2-channel video on 2 screens, the first one and the second one here, and also with 5-channel sound. So with this description, you might easily imagine its visual and audio effects. The artist Ho Chunian is a Singaporean, and he was born in 1976. In this piece, the artist examines the significance of the Gwangju democratic movement in light of the numerous uprisings that have occurred throughout Korean history's most recent century. And the title, the 49th Hexagram, represents an opportunity for radical change in terms of the tarot card. And even though it is possible for this type of change, you should plan well to make the change positive. So for this, the artist put together a set of storyboard, a series of illustrations for the purpose of pre-visualizing an animation film using film stills from the numerous South Korean movies that portrayed these uprisings. But actually, there was one problem during the production process. That is, the animation team was unable to depict any instance that directly referenced Korean history due to their own country's political sensitivities within their own context. So the artists gave the studio permission to replace any elements in the storyboard that it had deemed problematic, so that the whole production process could continue. And because of this, the identities of the figures in the resulting animation was obscured. As they rebel, people appear with masks like this or clothes in other skins. Additionally, it was necessary to change the names of the studio and the nation on the credit for this reason. So you cannot find the exact name of the studio. So you can see how the political situation still matters until now. And also this work was a result of collaboration. South Korean artists and musicians, Baek Hyun-jin and Park Min-hee, they created 2 vocal interpretations of the 49 hexagram. And while the second track draws from Kagok, which is one of the Korean traditional musics, the first track offers a modern and contemporary interpretation of folk tradition. Furthermore, it is possible to consider the concept of Asia as a discursive and expressive space, considering its political complexity. This artwork thus becomes both a song for a collective that are either grounded in or hovering around Asia into the cinematic form. This also raises the question of how the collective consciousness and sensibilities emerge through the works, all of whom have observed and articulated the political, social, and cultural movement in Asia that have developed simultaneously. The exhibition poses concerns about being and meaning outside of a Western ontological framework while examining how these personal narratives and historical events are connected through a belief system created equally by spirituality and propaganda, regardless of era and region. In the end, you can also find the specific section only for the archive of the uprising. There were more than 10 books published by some Korean foundations, such as the May 18 Memorial Foundation, Korea Democracy Foundation, and also from May 18 Democratic Uprising Archives. If you are interested in the historical context, I recommend checking their website, as they also provide some basic information in English as well. So now it's time to give a brief introduction to the Korean Pavilion. Born in 1970, artist Yoon Kim has been working as a multidisciplinary artist who even composes electronic music and uses installations, drawings, sound, text, and other different media. He transforms the pavilion for the Biennale into its own world or living body, filled with his dynamic artworks that are meant to alert viewers to the never-ending cycle of beginnings and endings. The stunning installations are a reflection of the artist's cross-disciplinary practice that combines literature, mythology, philosophy, science, technology, and etc. So the first one, Impulse, is an adaptation of an existing piece and also a massive chandelier that connects the pavilion to the outside world by channeling seawater from Venice. So it's local water from Venice through hundreds of intertwined tubes surrounding the sculpture. And the second one here, Dust of Suns, is also a sort of living sculpture made with the cutting-edge material invented by the artists. So this exhibits a kaleidoscope of colors that can only be seen with specially made lenses. This installation manages the wavelengths and convection of light in relation to its own density through covered connections to hardware, microcomputers, and software. And this 50-meter long sculpture will be the focal point of this year's exhibition. The artwork in the shape of a snake connects all the artworks and the surrounding areas like the central nerve that connects various body parts. This starts to pulse, like literally pulse and breathe as it starts to receive signals from another installation in the space. And it is really surprising how this exhibition and the artist as a whole structure all connected is breathing just like a real living object, embracing both human and non-human life and the universe. Yes, so the third exhibition, the next part is on the collateral event titled Times Reimagined. It's exhibiting Chun Kwang-young's installations in collaboration with Italian architect Stefano Blairi. To start with the artist introduction, he was born in 1944. He has been working for over 40 years under the theme of the interconnectedness between living beings and the social ecological values of their relationships. So I took some pictures of this exhibition venue called Hanji House by Stefano Blairi, as I really loved the scenery juxtaposing the artworks and the interior of the building along with the exhibition design. So Chun Kwang-young, the artist, he only uses handmade paper from mulberry trees in traditional East Asian methods instead of papers that is mass-produced. And surprisingly, this paper's maximum durability can be observed over a period of 1,300 years. So the artist created reliefs, sculptures, and installations out of disassembled papers from old books that were around 100 years old. You can see the details of it from the photo on the right side here. So it was all disassembled and reassembled. In this way, the paper used in his creations had a previous extent as a book that served as a repository for knowledge and information, and now it's revived this time as artworks. Another interesting point of this exhibition is that the artist invited Stefano Blairi as a collaborative partner here. Blairi's Hanji House, which conceptualized and reinterpreted Chun Kwang-young's eco-friendly paper artwork into architecture, was his response to this interdisciplinary artistic discussion. And additionally, Stefano Blairi's simple and poetic manifesto is a perfect match for the ecological organicity suggested by the artist Chun Kwang-young's artwork, which was developed using concept of time, space, humanism, and even ontology. So this is how the concept of contemporary sustainable architecture and ecological arts meet in Venice. Finally, we reached the final part of the talk, the main exhibition of the Milk of Dreams. So as we might all know, this year edition's questions were like this, quote, how is the definition of the human changing? What constitutes life? And what differentiates plants and animal, human and non-human? What are our responsibilities toward this planet? other people, and other life forms, and what would life look like without us? Quote. So these are some examples or main themes of this year's Biennale. In this year, 2 female Korean artists were invited to the Arsenale. They are Lee, born in 1988, and Kim Young-jung, who was born in 1980. Both might be regarded quite young as internationally working artists compared to other participating artists, but they are very established in terms of their artistic practices. And it would be much meaningful to think about the relationship of these 2 artists and the main themes, which are the representation of bodies, the relationship between individuals and technologies, and also the connection between bodies and the earth. These kinetic sculptures created by Lee allude to the tension between state of aliveness. These animatronic devices, which frequently consist of low-tech motors, filled with awkward materials like grease, silicone, or oil, but physically resemble machines and internal organs. According to the artists, the act of making this sensory object is linked to the body. In her most recent exhibition of sculptures, which was held 2 years ago, Carriers in Art Sonje Center, Seoul, Korea, she created situations in which various physical materials feed on one another. So this work was inspired by the idea of vor, the fetish of being swallowed or swallowing another alive. And for this main exhibition, she created a brand new piece that expands the carrier concept, laced with a pump and a substance that will dry, layer, and crack over time. Actually, from the photo, you can see some liquid here and some kind of organic materials. Yeah, and also we can move on to the final one. Yeah, so the very final artwork of today's talk is here. Kim Young-jung, a choreographer and performance artist, emphasized the uncanny relationships that have developed between people and machines using her own body and machine. Her work exists in the liminal space between comforts and discomforts, with technology, non-consensual sensitivity to objects, and a beautiful but also horrifying revelation of techno-social opposition. And the artist intentionally leaves her engineered beings with a novice, toy-like, and even experimental experience. This odd combination of continents highlights their playful nature. The toys on display here are all DIY robots made by the artist after her self-taught learning in programming electric circuits and mechanisms, a process she has compared to sewing stitch by stitch. And they are all displayed alongside videos documenting Jung Keum-hyung's own interactions with her machines. So when these robots start moving, despite their initial appearance as being strong and very useful, their fragility and instability become obvious. So she created encounters between humans and machines that test our capacity for empathy when non-human entities appear to need our assistance, while giving her toys a clumsiness that evoked the desire to care for them from the human observers. So this was the final artwork we covered for this webinar. And before I finish, let me quickly revisit the list of these exhibitions. So today with a special focus on the first exhibition, To Where the Flowers Are Blooming, starting with the historical context of the South Korean democratization. I wanted to emphasize how Korean contemporary art exhibitions and Korean contemporary artists are trying to construct collective memory and solidarity. For example, now we have some questions like this. The first one could be, how can emerging and young artists who have never experienced the sadness from the specific modern history develop their own artistic practice to resonate with the past? The second one could be, what about Ho Chunian, who is not Korean, but a Singaporean artist, can talk to us about his historical imagination on the Korean history? So to answer these kind of questions, I would say that these historical traumas are no doubt particularities of specific countries and generations. Yeah, they now become spiritual indicators to illuminate collective memory all over the continent. So with each artist's bird's-eye views, these art practices function as a tribute to the globe, and beyond mourning and lingering in the past, they discuss the possibility of integrated recovery by visualizing communities where their stories can all resonate. That is, in their practices, these contemporary artists embrace both those who have not departed this life and those who have not experienced the sorrow, regardless of borders. So in the end, various temporalities are also superimposed in this artistic reconstruction as an immersive territory. So I hope you all to find your own ways toward mutual and universal understanding by seeing beyond the collective memory and solidarity I've mentioned so far. And since I'm working on my doctoral research, tentatively titled Socially Engaged Art in Contemporary Korea, which include protest, audience participation, and so on, please send me an email if any of you has an interest in it. So I think it's time to wrap up now. Thank you so much for listening, and let me know if you have any questions. Grazie. Grazie mille. Thank you.
Thank you, Minji. It was very fascinating. And so, well, first of all, I'd like to ask to the audience if there are any questions. Se ci sono domande potete scrivere anche in italiano, ecco, in caso io poi posso tradurre. So feel free to either write or, I don't know, I think there's a way probably to also ask for, yeah, to take the word. But in the meantime, if nobody has questions or is thinking about questions, because I think, you know, people need a little bit of time to just, you know, rationalize everything. I was wondering, so first of all, I wrote down like probably 5 questions while you were talking, but I'm going to limit myself to probably 1 or 2. So I was wondering, well, I was very interested in the first part, the first section of your talk, the work, This Is How I Participate in the Uprising. And well, the immersion in the lifestyle of Koreans from the 80s, as it happens, you know, in the work, This Is How I Participate in the Uprising, to me sounds like it calls for a sort of personification of the past somehow. And I was wondering if this is more like your opinion question. Do you think this is only a way to kind of wear the same shoes of the people from the 80s to connect with them, or also a way to reconnect with the Korean identity, as the Kwonjo uprising as like a very identity related kind of meaning. So this was my first question.
Yeah, so thank you so much for your interesting question first. So yeah, let me start from the 주먹밥, the rice bowl. Yeah, because it has a kind of historical context in terms of the, you know, some characteristics like easy to bring, easy to make, and easy and very cheap to make as well. So it was very popular at that time, especially during the protest, not only the Gwangju uprising. I think that's why Seo, the artist, uses 주먹밥, the specific food, into the Korean context even in the Venice exhibition. And also, I also agree with your opinion about the making the relationships or connecting people or connecting two different temporalities. So as I mentioned in the last part, I think this sort of techniques, like in terms of artistic production or creation, they always think the artists seem like ponder the ways to superimpose the different temporalities for the mutual understanding. Maybe that's why I use the same expression for the very last slide. And yes, yeah, and related to the relationship, it might be easier or very helpful to look up the Nicolas Puey's relational art or relational aesthetics, if it's possible. Yeah, so it was kind of a very popular artistic form, especially in the 1990s, to, you know, like to share food, to share something, to do something with people, like including the artist and the audience, etc. So I also think Seo uses the same art form in this exhibition for the understanding and, you know, kind of solidarity, etc. Yeah, thank you so much for the question.
Thank you for your answer. And again, I'll try to see if there's someone who wants to ask you something. I don't know. I'll wait. Oh, okay. So there is I'll read the question for you. Eleonora asks, the artworks chosen by the Biennale are all installation. Is this a trend of Korean contemporary art or just a coincidence?
Okay, thank you so much for your question, Eleonora. I hope I pronounced right. Yeah, so I think because the curatorial team, there's no single Korean curatorial members in it, but so it might be a coincidence. But I do think it's a kind of trend of Korean contemporary art, especially the sculpture, the specific medium sculpture is very much in trend right now. And I'm not sure what I can recommend an exhibition currently held in Seoul. I will type on here. Sorry, it's in Korean. Yeah, it's in Bookstore Museum of Art. You can find some English information about this sculpture specific exhibition. Yeah, and they are emphasizing this trend along with introduction of like around 10 emerging artists who can represent the current trend of Korean contemporary art right now. So yeah, it might be easier to look up this exhibition. Thank you.
Thank you. I just was wondering, speaking about trends, whether there is like a topic or subject trending right now among Korean artists, especially when it comes to sculpture. So regardless of the Biennale exhibition, just generally speaking.
Generally speaking, okay, so I'm actually very much interested in like digital and online persona. yeah, I think you all might read some like articles on free solo, and one of the like shining examples of Korean contemporary artists for the free solo was Song Shin-ryu. I will also type that the name here. Yeah, yeah. So there are more than, I don't know, like 5 or 6 artists at least who are working on the very similar topics right now. I can also give them other examples like yeah, Hyunjae Kim, and yeah, so these are the range of artists who are working on the online persona, who uses online platforms or the digital technologies to emphasize the very existence of like another myself on the like multiverse, or multiverse, or I forgot the name of this program, but yeah, like real or website. So this could be another trending flow in Korean contemporary art, I guess.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was very interested in this. You know, it's very hard to, I think, find information maybe while anything. Okay, so we have another question from Anna Sophia. And so she asked, do you think that maybe trying to resonate with past trauma, a way to perform a bond or to make people more wary of something that seems pretty far away in the past, being that it's already been over 40 years since the Gwangju uprising?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you so much for the question, Anna. I also agree with the point you mentioned here. So actually, when I just started my master's degree, when I first learned about the Minjung arts, I was very curious about the like meaning of like studying this like past, which are very far from myself. But but sadly, this was like national trauma, and you can still find some like legacies in Gwangju, legacy of this Gwangju uprising in like cities like Gwangju or like near there, and also so even after Minjung art, there was a trend called post-Minjung art in the 1990s and 2000 era. So this one is just like all connected, interconnected, like the legacy just like it just come around again and again and again. So might be it's hard to describe the reason, the exact reason, but I think because Gwangju uprising is the national trauma and one of the biggest watershed moments in Korean modern society, so that might be the reason then. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And also there was it's not a question, it's like a comment. And so I'm gonna read it out for you. Tosca says, I enjoyed your Korean art presentation. It was awesome. I love the part where you explained Jin Mayason's work and how he used, through the use of 3D, creating a work in which the message expressed as a propaganda post for global protests. It's so clear that she makes me shiver. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also was thinking about this. It was very, very interesting to listen to. I don't know if there are any other questions.
Ricordiamo al pubblico che possono anche scriverle in italiano, quindi non vi fate problemi, poi le traduciamo noi. In the meantime, I would like to thank Minji for the very, very interesting presentation, and I am waiting to go finally to Venice Biennale.
Yes, before it ends in November.
Yes.
Yeah.
Infatti ricordiamo agli spettatori che appunto la Biennale di Venezia è aperta e sarà aperta fino al 27 di novembre, quindi insomma se volete andare a vedere le esibizioni e le installazioni artistiche di cui abbiamo parlato oggi e magari vederle da, non lo so, una prospettiva diversa, insomma, siete invitati a visitarla.
Yeah, so there is another comment in the chat box. Again, a thank you message. And there is a question. A questioner, so Bede is asking, in reference to Anna's question, is there some artist who is expressing some kind of healing process from this generational trauma shared by Koreans?
Yeah, so thank you again for the comments and questions. Yeah, so regarding the question from Fede, I think I can recommend two other artists. No, actually 3 other artists. I will also type down the names here. Yeondu Chang. Yeondu Chang. So he tried to make like documentary artworks or just video installations regarding some national trauma, not only from Korea, but also from Japan or Taiwan or Hong Kong, you know, in terms of democracy movement. And also you can find Song Kim. Yeah, so his work was about like Hawaii immigrant Koreans who were like in the period of 1920s. So it despite the difference between the generations, you can find like the relationship between the national trauma, not just from the Gwangju Rising, but also like immigrations forced by the government or the, you know, like other people. And also, yeah, Im Hong-sun. Yeah, he is an artist, film director, so he was the one who won the silver medal from the last, maybe, I forgot the year, but yeah, from the Venice Biennale. Yeah, he's working on the trauma regarding the governmental violence, not just from the John Doo-han dictatorship, but also Park Chung-hee, the Park Chung-hee's 1970s dictatorship as well. So I think you can find some interesting examples from these 3 artists here. Yeah, so yeah, thank you again for the questions.
Okay, so I think we're heading towards the end of the session. Well, I wait for, if there is any other questions. I wanted to actually ask something, again, not concerning the Biennale, but it just came up to my mind and I just wanted to take this chance to ask you. Is there some kind of, I don't know, I would say probably trending art, or just, you know, is there any work or artist, Korean artist, who is dealing with, more specifically, with feminism or ecofeminism or this kind of things, especially among, I would say, young people? I'm interested in this.
Yeah, young people.
It might be useful for my research as well, so I just wanted to ask.
Right. Okay, so not sure how I can make the standard of young people in terms of this, but I will try to. Yeah. So to start with, maybe it would be helpful if you find out some information about the last Venice Biennales, Korean Pavilion, like Jin Kaisen, and Hwayang Nam, and Siren Inyoung Jung. Yeah, these 3 artists were representative of Korean Pavilion in 2019. In one of the main theme of the pavilion at that time was feminism. So yeah, especially they call like Asian feminism. So it might be relevant to your questions. And in terms of the young and emerging feminist artists. There's so many examples, but I can recommend to find some artworks by Changpa and a group called Louise the Woman.
Okay.
Yeah.
So much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I don't know if again there are any other questions. I'll just please stay.
I have just a comment for our guest, if I can.
Yeah.
Just a little comment on this webinar that's very interesting, especially for the last part, the Milk of Dreams, that impressed me very much, like toy prototype. It was very spooky and emotional at the same time, but the message is very strong. I like to see in person because it's very interesting installation. I love it so much. And I want to thank you, Minji Chun, for to be here tonight with us. And I hope I can see this installation one time. I hope. It was very, very beautiful. And cambio lingua giusto per un secondo. Perché innanzitutto vorrei ringraziare tutti quanti per essere stati qui con noi, ringrazio Grazia per il suo traduttore, così la nostra moderatrice di stasera, ringrazio chiaramente anche Raffaele che ha fatto le veci praticamente di Asiatica, perché sì. Vi voglio ricordare prima magari...
Viaggio, no, aggiungo anche
aggiungi, esatto.
tutto Viaggio in Corea che insomma ci ha supportato nell'organizzazione di questo evento e anche dei prossimi. E riguardo a questi prossimi eventi, appunto adesso Vittore vi farà un reminder dei prossimi incontri.
Esatto, perché abbiamo altri 2 incontri, in particolare il 13 ottobre sempre alle 18:30, e tratterà ovviamente sempre di arte, quindi con l'associazione Arcoi ci ritroveremo a fare un excursus con 3 artisti in particolare, ma non vi voglio proprio rovinare la sorpresa dell'evento. E poi soprattutto il 12 novembre alle 10:30 avremo un incontro sul webtoon coreani, quindi con 2 artiste in particolare, Amma Velletri e Angelica Vianello, che si occuperanno appunto di spiegarci questo mondo che tanto piace adesso più che mai. Quindi questi sono i nostri incontri e ovviamente vi ringraziamo se volete essere con noi. E questo, insomma, non so, i ragazzi di Viaggio in Corea...
Sara o Leonora, Vincenzo, qualcuno vuole prendere la parola o...
Yeah, in the meantime, while we wait, I just wanted to say thank you again to Minji for having me here tonight with us.
Thank you for inviting me for this amazing motorcycle.
It was a huge honor. Thank you so much. Yeah, so thank you. I'm gonna leave the floor to, I don't know, Eleonora or...
Visto che c'è anche Vincenzo, comunque salutiamo anche noi, ringraziamo. Thank you Minji. Grazie a tutti per aver partecipato e vi aspettiamo ai prossimi incontri.
Thank you.
Buona serata a tutti.
Buona serata.
Buona serata.
Buona serata, ciao.